In this video, we're going to be looking at the G15 gaming laptop with a 3070 versus the M1 Max on Minecraft running on various shaders. So I got a triple camera setup using QuickTime, of course, on the M1 to not impact, and then on the G15 using OBS with the NVIDIA encoder. So this first test, we're going to be looking at just running off a recommendation to run this. I don't know how to pronounce this, SILDURS Shaders, but we're going to be doing a test to see how the create new world runs. So really, from my testing, I would say, compared to old Macs, I don't know if my users don't have access to Windows machine, but if you were just upgrading from an older Mac, you'll get faster performance. And then you can see here on the M1, you're able to run at high MB, which I think is the bloom. So the M1 at this setting gets about 40 FPS. And depending on, obviously what laptop you're coming from, for an M1 machine, if you were coming from the MacBook Air and considering updating, you are getting better performance. But with the G15, some of the settings are at around 40 FPS, but can go higher. So switching over, we can see, in my opinion, also from a graphic perspective, as I'm not answering my friend while I'm recording, um, I just, for some reason, at the same shaders, I think it looks better, but I don't know in the comments if you guys want to talk about that performance. I don't know if it's the rendering engine of NVIDIA versus perhaps the Java engine using OpenGL. That is something, if depending on what you're considering doing, or, how the total uses of this machine, what you want to do. So I told you guys I was going to test every shader. So here we bumped up the shader to the extreme setting, and now the performance drops to about 20 FPS. Looks good, but in my opinion, I'm not going to play anything lower than 30 FPS. While the G15 is, the of course still running it smoothly. So kind of my off-screen camera, because the FPS settings doesn't show it justice. So you're gonna have to, for watching this, test everything based on when I do the OBS recording. But you can see here it's about 40 FPS. And even now, I'm just going to test anyways, going to extreme VL, which I don't exactly know what VL stands for, but this is the highest shader, at least from this shader pack, that you're able to run. And, you know, obviously, if I'm not preferring to run the M1 on 20 FPS, it's not going to run that great either. It keeps around 20 FPS, but in my opinion, this is just unplayable. Unless people are used to playing on potato machines, this is just not great. And I don't know if this is a render graphic issue with Extreme or whatnot, but I got this red tree going that just sticks around in the rest of this video. But yeah, just not ideal playing situations. While the G15 at the max settings on this one, of course, is still running at 40. So maybe this is an issue with the Windows gaming PC, but in my extended testing, even turning all the settings down, my FPS was locked at 40. So it's even possible that probably you could get higher FPS. I just couldn't research enough when I was doing this to extend it. So, with either system you're getting, there's going to be configuration options that you'll have to play around with. It's not like Apple is just plug and play, right? If you want Minecraft on M1, there's also a native version, but you're gonna have to research all that and figure all that out. And with the G15, when I was first testing it, it used the internal AMD monitor or AMD GPU. Now, doing a fan test, of course, the M1 is just a beast. Okay, it's not even using any fans basically. And in my external camera, um, I was listening to that video, and you'd really hear the fan noise bumping up. I think I'll show later in this video, it gets up to like 4,500 RPM. So, that's another thing to consider is heat versus, FPS. So obviously I probably could turn the settings down, or there's settings in Windows G15 to edit, but this is something you want to definitely play around with. All right, so just going back to shader performance and stuff of that nature, You know, I'm bumping things down to medium and just to see what the FPS is. So depending if you want to play on high with bloom, or medium, here on the M1 you're getting about 60 FPS. It still looks good in my opinion, and you can see here with the QuickTime recording, more smooth than, you know, what we were getting before. Of course, you know, I said with my off-screen camera I'm having some FPS issue match with my timeline. But yeah, this also runs, of course, on the G15 on the medium settings as well, pretty smoothly. But until I figure out the 40 FPS lock, you know, that's just something that people are gonna have to consider. So yeah, going back to you know, the temperature wise on the G15, I'm bumping up to 90 and 77 Celsius. While if you were, you know, been monitoring this on this video, the temps on the M1 Mac, not even like an impact, right? We were switching back 64C. RPM is still at, you know, 1500. So you're getting 3 times the loudness on G15, whereas you know, Mac's barely running, barely noticeable. So that is kind of the general takes on this machine, in my opinion. There's other stuff I tested. So of course, the M1 Max, there's something called the SEUS. I think it's SEUS or something. I don't exactly know. But these allow you to drive RTX. So, you know, because I have RTX on this machine, I just wanted to see like, hey, what even happens? And it just is unable to render. I did some light Google searching. There's some config to get it to run, you know, some settings. But overall, I doubt that the performance would be good. Whereas on the G15, you know, you are able to get decent performance in RTX. But compared to the Extreme, like I'm not, I don't know, maybe it's just me or someone with a better eye can see the difference between RTX or Extreme. I think some of the water looks better and some of the reflections are more accurate, like a realer reflection from the sun. But the bloom, they just make it so well in the Extreme version, and I don't know how to pronounce it, Slider S versus the SEUS. So I think it comes down to preference. So if you don't have an RTX machine, you have an AMD gaming laptop, I don't think you're missing out if you're able to run this. And I got stuck in the water here. So, you know, for anyone, you know, watching me benchmark and all this stuff, you know, the only video games I play is Dota 2 and League. So everything else is just me testing. I guess because everyone in the comments told me to. I mean, I do have played Minecraft back in the day, but everything else I'm like rusty at. You know, the only things I have time for is like either watching Dota 2 tournaments, playing Turbo or ARAM on League. So don't hate on my noob gaming benchmarks and stuff of that nature. But yeah, I guess to kind of wrap up this video, or some final thoughts, I mean, Minecraft is playable and you can run, at least on, one of the commenters told me to get this particular shader pack. You're able to get, you know, 40 FPS on bloom, which I think is better performance than the previous M1s. And of course, if you had a really old MacBook, which still has like AMD, or not that old, but like AMD with Intel or AMD with the old NVIDIA, you could push better graphics and stuff of that nature. But of course, you're gonna have the fans belong on the MacBook as well. So I guess for people wondering, as my friend is coughing in the background, hope you don't have COVID, bro. Just kidding. Just kidding, bro. But yeah, to wrap up this video, as I'm leaving that in, because I'm not like a full-time YouTuber, just let me know your thoughts on this. Do you want RTX or not? And even what you saw from the RTX, do you like, you know, the RTX versus the Extreme? Or would you get the M1 MacBook and like the coolness and stuff of that nature? So all things to consider as, you know, everyone's benchmarking and testing this device out. So yeah, until the next one, guys, hope you have a good weekend, and let's go Braves. Yeah.